My grandfather always said that what holds a truth people have forgotten. It shows its age, its strength, its history in every grain. People hide their truth. That morning, the conference room was all glass and cold steel, a place where truth went to die. On the polished table sat my creation, the silent root bookshelf. I had carved every joint by hand, using an old way of building that needed no nails or glue, just precision. It was strong, simple, and built to last generations. Mr. Hayes, my boss, smiled his plastic smile. He called my work quaint and nostalgic. I knew he hated it. He loved flashy, mass-produced furniture that looked good in ads but wobbled after a year. He just needed it to impress one person. The client, Alara Vance, arrived. She ran a foundation that built libraries and community centers in small towns. She didn't say much, just observed everything with calm, intelligent eyes. I liked her immediately. She ran a hand over the bookshelf's smooth surface. "The joinery is beautiful," she said, her voice quiet. "It feels honest." My heart swelled with a hope I hadn't felt in years. This was for places with limited budgets, places that needed furniture that wouldn't break. I began to explain how the interlocking joints made it incredibly strong. I was about to demonstrate how it could be taken apart and moved easily. That's when Mr. Hayes decided to test it. "Let's show Ms. Vance just how sturdy this handmade stuff really is," Mr. Hayes said, his voice too loud. Before I could say a word, he grabbed a heavy metal paperweight from the table. He swung it hard against the bookshelf's central support. A sickening crack echoed through the silent room. A critical internal joint splintered. The shelf sagged, wounded. A small, carved wooden peg popped out and rolled in a sad little circle on the table. The room froze. I felt my hands turn to fists at my sides. My project, my truth, shattered for show. Mr. Hayes feigned surprise. "Oh my, see how fragile it is," he said, shaking his head with fake sadness. "This simply won't do for a rugged environment. It's charming, but we need modern solutions. Durable plastics, smart assembly." I couldn't look at him. I looked at Alara. Her face was unreadable, a calm mask. But her eyes were like lasers, cutting straight through Mr. Hayes' performance. She wasn't looking at the broken shelf. She was looking at him, and she did not look impressed. I knelt and gently gathered the broken pieces. The wood felt warm, like a living thing that had been hurt. My throat was tight. This wasn't a test. It was a murder. He was killing my project so he could push his own cheap, factory-made line. Alara turned that calm gaze to Mr. Hayes. "I see," she said, her voice flat. "Thank you for the demonstration." Mr. Hayes beamed, thinking he had won. He didn't understand that her "thank you" was a dismissal, not a compliment. The meeting ended. He strutted out victorious. I stayed behind, cradling the broken pieces in my arms. Alara lingered as she packed her bag. She walked past me and paused. "Leo," she said softly, so only I could hear. "Do you have a personal card?" "Not the company one." I nodded, my heart hammering. I pulled a simple, plain card from my wallet. She took it and slipped it into her leather notebook without a word. "I'd like to discuss the real potential of this design," she whispered, "away from all this noise." Then she was gone. I was left alone in the ruined room, hope flickering back to life. Later, in the parking lot, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Leo, this is Alara Vance." I was serious. "Can we meet privately? My foundation is interested, but not in working with your company." I leaned against my old truck, a dry laugh escaping my lips. I looked up at the harsh blue sky. My grandfather's voice was in my head. "What tells the truth, boy?" Well, maybe it was time for me to start telling mine. I texted her back, agreeing to meet. The game had changed. I grew up in a small town where the forest was our backyard. My grandfather was a master woodworker. His hands were rough and scarred, but they could create magic from a block of maple. He taught me that every piece of wood has a spirit. You don't force it, you work with it. I spent my childhood surrounded by the smell of sawdust and varnish. I learned to listen to the sound a good chisel makes, a clean shave that speaks of sharpness and skill. That workshop was my whole world. It was a world of quiet truth. I met my wife, Amelia, at a town festival. I was selling a small, hand-carved jewelry box. She picked it up, ran her fingers over the dovetail joints, and smiled. "It's put together like a secret," she'd said. She had a laugh that sounded like wind chimes. We built a simple, happy life together in a small house I was slowly fixing up. She was a teacher, and her students adored her. We dreamed of one day having a big family, of filling the house with noise and love. We were so young, so sure we had all the time in the world. Amelia got sick. It was a swift and cruel disease that didn't care about our dreams. The last promise I made to her was in a hospital room that smelled of antiseptic, not wood. I promised I would build things that mattered, things that lasted, things that made the world a little more beautiful and solid. After she was gone, the big city and a job at a fancy furniture firm seemed like a way to escape the memories. I was wrong. The memories followed me. And Mr. Hayes' world of fake, flimsy things felt like a betrayal of my promise to her. Mr. Hayes wasn't always the boss. The old boss, Mr. Evans, was a craftsman himself. He had hired me because he saw the soul in my work. He said, "We serve families, Leo. They need tables for holiday dinners, beds for their children. They need heirlooms." Under him, I thrived. Then he retired. Mr. Hayes took over. He came from a world of fast fashion and faster profits. On his first day, he pointed at my drafting table and asked, "Can we get that design into an app? People want quick assembly." I knew then we were from different planets. I tried to keep my head down. I worked on the Silent Root project in secret. Late at night, after everyone left, it was my tribute to Amelia, to my grandfather, to everything I believed in. Then Mr. Hayes found out. He was furious I was wasting company time on old-fashioned junk. He scheduled a meeting with Alara's foundation to force my hand, to show me his way was the only way. He never imagined she would see the real value. And when she did, he had to destroy it right in front of her. But he underestimated us both. I arrived at the address Alara had sent me. It was an old, repurposed warehouse, the sign outside reading Vance Foundation Workshop. Inside wasn't a sleek office. It was a giant, beautiful space filled with the smell of real wood and the sound of machinery. There were workbenches, stacks of timber, and projects in various stages of completion. This was a place for building, not for talking. Alara stood by a massive table, looking over a set of blueprints. She looked up and gave me a genuine smile. "Leo," she said, "welcome to the real work." I held up my personal sketchbook. "These are my original designs. Nothing from the company." She nodded, understanding completely. "Good. Honesty is a foundation of everything we do here." She led me deeper into the workshop. We once spent a fortune on modern furniture for a community center. It started falling apart in months. The plastic cracked, the cheap screws stripped. She looked at me. "I knew the moment I saw your shelf that you understood. I want to see what you can really do." I opened my sketchbook. The pages were filled with detailed drawings. I showed her the Silent Root joint, the one Mr. Hayes broke. Its design gets stronger under weight. I explained. The more books you put on it, the tighter the joint locks. I flipped to another page. This is a new idea, a modular system. A community could start with a few shelves and add more, building an entire library system over time, all using the same simple joints. No special tools needed. Alara studied the pages, her finger tracing the lines. This is what we need," she whispered. "I want to work with you, Leo." "Just you," Alara said, her voice firm. "We'll fund the materials. You do the work here. Can you do that without using any of your company's resources?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "My designs are my own. I'll use my own tools, my own time." "Perfect," she replied. "I don't want you tied to people who can't see real value." A weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I could breathe. I had a mission. I was going to keep my promise to Amelia, and Mr. Hayes couldn't stop me. Back at the office, my punishment began. An email from Mr. Hayes. "Leo, Your focus will shift to inventory management and supply logs. Your design duties are suspended until further notice. He was putting me in a corner, hoping I'd quit. I just replied, understood. I didn't care. My real work happened after hours. That evening, I went to a local lumberyard. The owner, an old-timer named Ben, knew good wood. Starting a new project? He asked. I nodded. Something that matters. He smiled. Take what you need. Pay me when you can. The Vance Foundation workshop became my second home. I started from scratch. I selected each piece of oak and maple myself, checking the grain, the sound of my hand playing, the gentle shhh as it peeled off thin curls of wood, was a meditation. I cut the joints with slow, precise movements. Each notch and tab had to fit perfectly. When the first two pieces slid together with a solid thunk, it was a better sound than any praise from Mr. Hayes. It was a sound of truth. It was a sound of a promise being kept. I worked late into the night. The only light was from my bright work lamp. The only sound were my tools and the city outside. I was assembling the main frame when I noticed a problem. One of the cross beams was a fraction of an inch too long. It was a tiny mistake, but in woodworking, tiny mistakes become big failures. I didn't get angry. I got calm. This was Wood talking to me, telling me to slow down, to be respectful. I took my time, shaving it down until it fit perfectly. The wood was my partner, not my enemy. Weeks passed. The new silent root system was taking shape. It was stronger and more elegant than the first. Hilaire would sometimes stop by, just to watch. She never rushed me. One day, she brought a friend, a man who ran a youth center. Can he try it? She asked. The man, whose hands were more used to basketballs than tools, easily slotted a new module into the frame. It locked into place, solid as a rock. He grinned. If I can do it, the kids can do it. That was the best review I could have asked for. The email arrived. It was from the Vance Foundation. You are invited to present the silent root system at the National Community Builders Summit in Willow Creek. My heart soared. Willow Creek was my hometown. I was going home to show them what I had built. The next morning, another email from Mr. Hayes. All staff are reminded that external projects require company approval. Unauthorized work is a breach of contract. He was getting nervous. He could sense something was happening. I just smiled. He had no idea what was coming. The summit was held in the old community hall. I remembered from my childhood. The air smelled of pine trees, not exhaust fumes. The room was filled with people who actually built things. Carpenters, librarians, teachers. I set up the silent root system on a simple platform. No flash, no music. Just wood. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it short. This system is strong, reparable, and can grow with your community. I demonstrated the joints. I showed how it could be taken apart and moved. The room was silent, listening. Then, a woman from a rural library stood up. We need this. How soon can we get 10 units? A man from a city youth program followed. We'll take 20. The requests came fast. People were handing me business cards, shaking my hand. It was working. My idea was going to help people. That's when a loud, familiar voice cut through the buzz. A fantastic result from our company's innovation incubator. Mr. Hayes was here, marching toward the stage, his smile wide and fake. He was trying to steal this moment, too. Hilaire stepped forward before he could reach me. Mr. Hayes, she said, her voice cool and clear. This is Leo's personal project. We invited him, not your company. Hayes' smile tightened. I'm his director. This falls under my purview. Then you should know and give credit where it's due, Hilaire replied. The crowd was watching, their faces hard. They understood what was happening. Hayes looked around, seeing no support. His face turned red. He forced a nod and retreated, his posture stiff with defeat. I had won. I stood alone with my creation after the crowd left. Though it glowed warmly in the afternoon light, a deep peace settled over me. This wasn't about beating Mr. Hayes. It was about a promise I made in a quiet hospital room. It was about my grandfather's lessons in his dusty workshop. It was about a simple, honest piece of wood. I placed my hand on the shelf. It was solid. It was true. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The truth, like a well-cut joint, always holds. If you've made it this far, you understand. Respect is non-negotiable. Your worth isn't defined by the boss who tries to break your work or the people who overlook your quiet skill. My story proves that silence can be a weapon and patience can be power. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who's been pushed into the background. Tell them your silence doesn't make you weak. Your craft doesn't make you outdated. Your integrity makes you extraordinary. Subscribe for more stories about finding your worth and turning betrayal into triumph. The real victory happens when you decide to build your own legacy. Your value was never in question. It was only waiting, like a perfect joint, to lock into place.